Gone Global. Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, I'm here in Brussels. I arrived very early this morning for a meeting with the heads of all the big European political groups and parties, and they produced a little memorandum saying that the Prime Minister should not arrive tonight empty-handed. She has to show, if an extension's going to be granted, that there are plans for a second referendum, a general election, or indeed a revocation of Article 50. And I got the impression that when she's in there right now, talking with the other leaders, I've got the impression she's in for a very, very tough and I think in many ways quite humiliating time. I did make the argument that if an extension's agreed, it'll lead to widespread public anger because Brexit would have failed. It'll lead to European elections in which sceptical parties will do well and probably a new Brexiteer Prime Minister. And there are some that think that Emmanuel Macron is perhaps the wild card here tonight. Remember, back in the 1960s, more than once, it was de Gaulle that vetoed Britain joining the European Economic Community. Could there be a perfect symmetry tonight where the French veto any extension and say, you're causing us too much trouble? Now, the PM's position, all of this, was laid out a couple of weeks ago in the House of Commons when she talked about this new hope for an extension.
As Prime Minister, I am not prepared to delay Brexit any further than the 30th of June.
Oh, there you are then. Strong and stable leadership, you see, from Mrs. May. And when she says these things, of course, you always believe her, don't you? Here she was today, arriving at the summit.
I know many people will be frustrated that the summit is taking place at all, because the UK should have left the EU by now, and I greatly regret the fact that Parliament has not been able to pass a deal that would enable us to leave in a smooth and orderly way. But I and the government continue to work to find a way forward.
Now, so we've gone from we will not accept an extension beyond the 30th of June to working to find a way forward. Well, let's go straight into the summit hall where I was earlier, and LBC's political editor Theo Usherwood is there right now. Theo, is there any sense that the French really could be the wild card tonight?
Absolutely, Nigel. Emmanuel Macron turned up here having clearly eaten a large bowl of shredded wheat and told the waiting journalists that he wanted clarity from the Prime Minister about exactly what she was going to use an extension for. Mr. Macron, of course, met with Theresa May in Paris yesterday. There may have been a kiss on the cheek for the British Prime Minister, but he hadn't even bothered to allow the Union flag to fly outside the Elysee Palace. Be under no illusions that Macron could really fire a torpedo into Theresa May's demands for an extension, whether that happens later tonight or in the early hours of this morning. Now, the question and answer session with Theresa May is in the process of breaking up. She will then return to the ambassador's residence here in Brussels, and the 27 other EU leaders will meet in private. There isn't a unanimous agreement already as to what the extension should be, how long it will last, or exactly what the caveats should be. But Leo Varadkar saying when he arrived that he didn't think that there was going to be a no-deal situation tomorrow. But there will be, Nigel, a price for Theresa May's extension. They will want to, the EU 27 will want to know that if you go back to Brussels, into the European Parliament, that you will not have the power to start messing around with the approval of the next European Commissioner to replace Jean-Claude Juncker. They'll want to know that you won't start tabling motions or amendments to the budget.
They're talking, Theo, about British MEPs coming back to the European Parliament and those MEPs not having the same rights as other MEPs, effectively being second-class citizens within the Parliament.
Yes, they are. They are talking exactly like that, because what they don't want to do is to create a sense of animosity, for want of a better word, because, of course, there is a likelihood that populist parties will do very well between May the 23rd and May the 26th at the European elections, and that the old status quo, the parties of such as the Liberal Democrats, Labour and the Conservatives will do very badly in those elections, and that they could be creating, the European leaders that is, by granting an extension, creating a rod for their own back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they want to ensure that there are safeguards in place to make so that if there are British MEPs from the Brexit party, say, or from UKIP, that they are unable to wreak havoc within the European Parliament. But also, Nigel, it is worth taking note of the domestic situation for Theresa May. If she goes back to the House of Commons tomorrow and she stands up, and you played completely the right moment there from 3 weeks ago at PMQs, where she said she couldn't countenance an extension beyond June the 30th,
I know.
and tells Conservative MPs without blinking that there is going to be an extension beyond June the 30th, her days she will not last beyond the middle towards the end of May. We are into now a different phase, and as I was saying to Eddie Mair earlier, I'd point you towards that vote last night on the Yvette Cooper bill. The Yvette Cooper bill to take no deal Brexit became a bit of a dead rubber. It became relatively insignificant, but the vote itself last night wasn't significant. 99 Conservative MPs voting against Theresa May's plan to be here in the first place and ask for an extension. Another 80 Conservative MPs abstaining in that vote. That is more than half of the Conservative Parliamentary Party. And so there is a shifting mood.
The stakes are very high. The stakes are very high, and it's a question of what she has to give. Theo, keep us in touch, please, with any breaking news that comes from that summit room. Well, Theo laying out there the Prime Minister's difficulties, but I just wonder, could history repeat itself? Could Emmanuel Macron veto any extension? If you think that could happen, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think it's Macron and Merkel playing good cop, bad cop, in which case text to 84850. And isn't perhaps the likeliest thing that she will actually accede to whatever they ask her to do, and once again back down in humiliating style? If that's what you really think, then please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course watch us on Facebook, comment there too. I've just got a message really for Emmanuel Macron, which is, if you extend this, all your worst fears will come true. We will finish up with a genuine Brexiteer Prime Minister from the United Kingdom. It's the results of the European elections that will cause it. And if you're asking for the new crop of MEPs that come here not to vote against your budget or your army or your long-term plans, I promise you, if I come back here, I'll vote against every single piece of it. So I hope that's an incentive to get that veto. My view overall is we'll finish up with a year's extension, but who knows? The stakes are high. Let's ask Lewis in Manchester, a new caller, what he makes of it. Good evening.
Hello, Nigel.
So de Gaulle vetoed us 60 years ago. Could it happen again?
To be honest, I have no idea. Our political system is it's crazy, isn't it, right now?
Yes, it's crazy. And maybe, Lewis, it's actually breaking down before our eyes.
Maybe. Me, I'm 28 years old, so, it's nothing, I would look into this stuff, but with the way it's gone, I'm looking more into now than I ever normally would do when it comes to politics.
Yes, but Lewis, actually, if our system isn't working, and if people don't feel represented, and if Brexit did cause the breakup of our two established parties, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, would it?
Probably not. Maybe it needs to collapse the whole thing so it can just be rebuilt, collapse, rebuild. Yeah. Isn't that a cycle?
Well, that's what I think. And Lewis, on Brexit itself, as a 20-year-old, what do you hope to see?
Well, I hope to see our country become independent as it once was. Like I say, we can still trade with Europe. We've got allies. There's America. There's others we can trade with. We can come to some kind of treaty. But what I want to see is us first. Us as a nation put first.
Oh, that means you're a nationalist, Lewis. Is that right?
Well, it's what you can call it. But like I say, I'm for putting us first. But, I'm for helping out our allies. But at the same time, we've got major problems over here that's going on. We need to clean house here first. And then whatever problems we might come with Europe, we can help them with our own decisions.
Okay, Lewis, your point of view is loud and clear. Alex is a new caller from Ascot. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening, Nigel. Very pleased to speak to to you, having seen you at a couple of UKIP meetings a few years ago. But anyway,
okay. Yep.
I personally hope that the extension is for 1 year or something longer than what Theresa May wants.
Yep.
My point's really quite simple. First of all, or points, plural. First of all, I agree with you. A little bit of mischief, I think, wouldn't go afoot, because the way things have been going, we're just kowtowing to the EU all the time. Whatever they say, they're turning the wheel, and Theresa May is running around like a little hamster inside. But what I think, and I've heard, as I said to your guy when I rang up, I've heard from a few people in high places. Obviously, I'm not going to mention any names on that. What I've heard, in actual fact, is that there's a very strong possibility, and I know you've said publicly that there's a surprise coming up, and I don't doubt for 1 minute that you won't say what it is. But what I have heard, there could be a possibility, if there isn't a deal of some description between UKIP and the Brexit Party, what I have heard is that there'll be quite a few UKIP MEPs actually coming over to Brexit.
Well,
now, whether that's
Alex,
true or not,
Alex,
I don't ask you to say that.
Well, some of that's happened already, but that's not really the issue. The issue is, in a word, is Macron going to veto this, or is she going to come home tomorrow with an extension, Alex?
She's going to come home with an extension.
I agree.
I really do.
I agree. Humbled and humiliated and back with the deal. Alex, thank you. This is the Nigel Farage Show, live from Brussels. It's 6:15. Time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Theresa May told reporters outside the emergency EU summit in Brussels she wants to agree a Brexit extension with a break clause if and when a deal is agreed by Parliament. A 41-year-old man's been jailed for 4 years for planning to bomb Britain's biggest mosque in Morden in South London. Leaders of Israel's Blue and White Party have now conceded defeat in the country's elections, but promised to be a staunch opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu's rule. LBC weather dry and cold for most overnight, with a widespread frost, some rain across northern Scotland, a low of 1 degree.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and a nightmare for the M25 in Essex this evening. Just off at junction 28, a lorry's overturned on the Brook Street roundabout. It means the main slip roads from the motorway onto the roundabout are shut. You can still get onto the A12 though via the dedicated slip roads, but it's causing huge queues clockwise from Waltham Abbey at 26. The A1M going northbound all held at the moment, shortly after Stevenage at 8 with an accident. The A2, big problems here, solid out of town from the South Circular to an earlier accident before Bean. Delays of an hour being reported. That's also causing delays on the M25 both ways at junction 2. In Kingston, an accident shut Kingston Hall Road outside Kingston College, and on the trains London Overground, a warning of severe delays from Liverpool Street to Chingford, Cheshunt and Enfield Town.
This is LBC. This is LBC. Live from Brussels, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345.
Stay one step ahead of the pack with the latest phones with the latest tech. Like the brand new Huawei P30 Pro with 4 cutting-edge cameras. At Tesco Mobile, it's yours for the low monthly price of $36.99 with no additional upfront costs. Offer ends 28th of April. So go in store or online now. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, 24-month usage agreement with Tesco Mobile Limited. Subject to status. Fair use policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
This is LBC. Live from Brussels, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, Mrs. May is over there arguing her case. She will leave shortly, go to the British Embassy and wait while the other 27 have one of their grand, sumptuous dinners and decide what to do about the pesky Brits. You do get the feeling that really they have got control of the ball in this game. The Prime Minister is asking for an extension up until the 30th of June. She simply isn't going to get that. They're either going to offer her a lengthier extension with all sorts of strings attached and all sorts of promises she needs to make, or maybe the French are going to say, we've had enough of this, we are going to veto you. What say you, Christina in Eastbourne? Good evening, Christina.
I honestly think, They're discussing this at the moment. It's like the song, how do you solve a problem like Mayria?
Very good, very good.
Yes. What's going to happen is this. They will try and do an extension because they're pushing the envelope. I'd never thought I'd see the day when they're actually using no deal as a weapon against us. They smelt out her weakness. They know that in order to get this extension, they can actually pile on this sort of opprobrium, which I don't know how they can do such a thing as to tell us who we can have in party to lead us through that extension period, nor can they, I don't think, because their law is so codified, I don't know whether they can stop us making decisions, but you would know more about that than us.
Well, ultimately, Christina, the British Prime Minister can do pretty much whatever she wants if she had.
What about Europe? Can they actually put those conditions without them being actually codified? Because it goes against the intervention of MEPs. My main thing is,
it's a deal, isn't it?
Nigel, her game is very strange. The only thing, apart from being completely bonkers or a masochist, the only thing I can think is going on is that she's been offered a seat at the high table when Verhofstadt's little dream of having a super-state governed by a handful of people comes true. But like all useless fools, she will be dumped, and she's stupid enough to believe in them.
I don't think they've offered her anything like that, Christina, because they can see how they can see how useless she is, and we can see how useless she is, and on that we're all agreed. But what Verhofstadt actually talked to me and smiled at me in my lift this morning after the meeting, and Verhofstadt actually wants Macron to veto this extension tonight.
All right, did he? How very interesting.
Because Christina, he wants to build a United States of Europe with all power at the centre, and he thinks an extension means the pesky Brits will slow everything up.
Well, we will. We will be a continuous thorn in their side.
I will.
Can I say something? If we are betrayed, Nigel, and I would say this to people we are a peaceful nation, so we can vote against Europe with our wallets and our feet, with our tourism and with the products that we buy British and let them suffer. That's what I say.
OK, Christina, thank you very much. And that's a sentiment I've heard more of in the last few months than I have in the last 30 years. On Twitter, I want anyone to veto the extension, says Billy. Lawrence takes a different view. Let's have a general election. Corbyn for Prime Minister, second referendum or Brexit in name only, and move on to other issues that matter. Lawrence, there are other issues that matter. But are you really, despite the mess the Tories are in, are you really convinced that Jeremy Corbyn will win a general election? Tough to say. Nigel, you say Theresa May wants extension no further than whenever. Something tells me Mrs May would prefer an extension of about 10 or 12,000 years, says D, being very, very cynical. On Facebook, Susan says, all 27 should veto extension to help the people of the UK keep democracy alive. That will not be uppermost in their minds, Susan, believe me. And Trina says, Macron will do what he's told. I think, Trina, in the end, it'll be Tusk and it'll be Barnier and it'll be Juncker and the boss, of course, Mrs Merkel. And I think, in the end, he will come into line with everybody else. The Tusk proposal, of course, was, and we read it out live on air last night on this show, that a one-year extension should be offered with a flexible option if we were to agree to that dreaded treaty in the meantime. That, I still think, is favourite, but hey. Stuart says, have you managed to bump into Theresa May and say hello? No, I've seen Barnier, I've seen Verhofstadt. I promise you, Stuart, whatever is happening here with security around this summit, the one thing they'll make absolutely sure of is that I don't get near the British Prime Minister. Let's go to Wakefield and speak to George. Good evening, George.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, could it be that a Macron veto means we leave at 11 p.m. this Friday with no deal?
You know, with the way I've seen Macron and Merkel, it's sort of almost inseparable over the course of his presidency so far. I just can't imagine it, because I think she's probably had one or two quiet little words in his ear. But, I wish we could just, crash out, as they say, which is far from the truth, on the 12th of April, because our civil service are seemingly quite prepared. But I thought that would be quite symbolic if we were to, because it was actually the date back in 1606 that the Union flag came into use. So if we were to take a major step towards reclaiming our identity, that could have been quite an ideal day to do it. But I'm also wondering, have Hungary been sort of banned from voting? Because there were rumours that a few weeks ago, the last time there was such a vote, that they were...
George, here it is, right? Viktor Orban is Eurosceptic in many, many ways and refuses to accept diktats from the centre. But the Hungarians, their position, and he's a very popular Prime Minister, his position is he doesn't want Hungary to leave the European Union, he wants to change the European Union, and therefore he actually sees it as being in his interest to keep the United Kingdom in. So there's going to be no Hungarian veto, George.
The trouble is, Nigel, is we all know that this is impossible to change it because, in 1957, when they stood on Capitoline Hill, they were basically in a religious bout of fanaticism, like almost doing the prophetic return of the old ancient empire, everything we've seen since has really backed that up.
Yeah, they called it the reunification of Europe, George, and I keep asking, which reunification are they referring to? George, thank you for the history lesson. Very good. Eric says on Facebook, I don't want my right to freedom of movement anywhere in Europe taken away. Well, Eric, there's probably good news for you, because the other thing that came out of that meeting this morning is the conversations that are going on between Mrs. May and Mr. Corbyn's teams, which, of course, were about a customs union being added to the political declaration, but also about workers' rights and various aspects of a single market, which I've talked about. It was made very clear, very, very clear this morning in the meeting that actually, if there is an amendment to the political declaration that is agreed by Corbyn and May and agreed by the European Union, freedom of movement will continue. So when she gave us her fireside chat at the weekend from Chequers and she said it would end freedom of movement, she simply wasn't telling the truth yet again. I'm going to Devon to speak to John in Holsworthy. Good evening, John. You're a new caller. Welcome.
Evening, Nigel. How are you?
I don't know what to say, John, really. I mean, it's just, the whole thing, let's be honest, the whole thing's appalling. We are being humiliated on the world stage, and our whole democratic system, our trust in Parliament and our leaders is evaporating before our eyes.
I couldn't agree more. It's a disgrace. But I'm a bit of a gambling man, and I've got some odds for you.
Oh, go on.
39 billion to 1. Nobody's going to veto it, let alone Macron.
Well, that is a very, very good point, that if we did leave on WTO terms, we probably would pay them a few bits and bobs, but it would be a fraction of 39 billion. And you're right, the money is very, very important. But,
well,
John,
it is for the Germans.
Certainly, because they really have been the paymasters of this whole organisation, although in return they've enjoyed massive trade surpluses. But, John, the counter-argument is this, that Macron is an EU fanatic. He wants to build a United States of Europe, he wants the army, he wants expansion, he wants all these things. And actually, an extension just means yet more summits here in Brussels being dominated by Brexit and not getting on with their project.
The thing to do, if he was an honest man, he would veto it immediately and say, let's just get them out of there because they're causing more trouble than they're worth.
Yeah. Well, I've done my best, John, for years to make them want to think that. And I promise I'll do it again. I'll promise I'll do it again. Absolutely. I'll be even worse next time. John, do you think in the end Macron will veto this, or do you think that Mrs. Merkel will tell him what to do?
I think for him to do that would be a very courageous decision, and I don't see him as being a courageous man at all.
Do you know what? Nor do I. John, thank you. Let's go to Bedfordshire and speak to Gary, another new caller. Good evening, Gary.
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for speaking to me. Nigel, I've got some thinking in my mind. Basically, there's an EU coup going on. They're taking over our country. If you think of it, I was on LinkedIn. I put a plan down, which May has got. What they're doing, she's both totally destroyed the government. She can't get. She's discredited most of the MPs. There's breakaway parties all over the place. I think this is a coup being put together by Macron, Merkel, and May. And what will happen? They'll get the extension for a year probably, and she'll just work away at the population. And in the end, she'll say, "Look, we've got to go for a second referendum."
Well, that may happen. It's not impossible, Gary, but if they did go for a second referendum, might they not be quite surprised by the result, perhaps?
I don't think so. I think most people, like you, I speak to people in the pub, and everybody sticks to the back teeth with it. And there's so much propaganda going on about what will happen if we Brexit. When the M20, there's miles and miles of road there not being worked on. Well, everybody's saying that it's a car park and won't be doing
I know,
Brexit.
I've seen it. I drove down it this morning. Gary, you say all that, and yet the opinion polling, and I've been talking about it for weeks on this show, says that now people are moving. No deal is by far the most popular option in this country and has a big, big lead over any form of extension. So I'm not sure people are believing all this stuff.
You're probably right. I'm with you, Nigel. We just walk away and go. Do we see it? I totally agree with that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, our democracy is being destroyed.
Oh yes, and that absolutely is right, and it's awful. Gary, thank you. And please, can I hear from some Remainers? I've had one or two texts and tweets. Please call 0345 6060 973. What do you want to see from this summit? I'm guessing what you want to see from this summit is a long extension with the Prime Minister promising another referendum. Malcolm in Surrey says, nobody will veto it, as they will all have to fall into line. That is for sure. Well, nothing is for sure, but, that may be the case. And on Twitter I'd like to know what the point of re-electing MEPs is, Nigel. I thought the European Parliament was powerless and the EU undemocratic. Well, the EU is undemocratic in the sense that those that propose law or propose the repeal of law cannot be hired and fired by the electorate. The European Parliament is like the House of Lords. It's got an important role in ratifying law, in amending law. Why do we elect MEPs? Well, all I can say from my perspective is I think I use the platform of being an MEP quite effectively to raise the level of debate about the European Union within the United Kingdom. And whether you agree with what I did or not, I think it's without doubt that it was being an MEP that gave me that privileged position. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:30 in time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
Theresa May is asking EU leaders for another delay to Brexit at an emergency summit in Brussels this evening. She's requesting it's now postponed until the end of June, but it's thought the Prime Minister will be offered a longer extension of up to a year, which could be cut short if a deal's approved by Parliament. A 31-year-old man found guilty of killing his date in a speedboat crash on the Thames 4 years ago has now been transferred out of prison in Georgia to return to the UK. Jack Shepherd went on the run for 10 months after failing to appear in court. Leaders of Israel's Blue and White Party have now conceded defeat in the country's elections. They've promised to be a staunch opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition rule. He's achieved an historic fifth term as Prime Minister. LBC weather, clear, dry and cold for most overnight with a widespread frost developing. Some light rain across the far north of Scotland, a low of 1 degree.
This is LBC.
Protecting your business from cybercrime is a growing priority, yet understanding how to stay ahead of potential threats is challenging. Whether you're a startup or an established business, BT is here to help. With a wide range of security-embedded products and services built especially for businesses. Find out more and enter to win a Pixel 3 smartphone plus a Google Home Hub at lbc.co.uk. BT. Helping business relationships stay on track.
You know your business, what keeps you up at night, and the moments that make it all worthwhile. You know your 5-year plan, and that you really want to be there in 2. We know we can help you get there. Barclays offers unsecured loans of up to £100,000 that can be with you in days or even hours. To apply for a loan that's right for your business, search Barclays Business Loans. Let's go forward. Subject to status, T's and C's apply, guarantee may be needed.
Set for Life is the new game from the National Lottery where you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. So now you can jump into June, make October a scream, and stick a rocket up November. Make every month amazing. Play new Set for Life Mondays and Thursdays. Amazing starts here. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Attention, all minicab drivers in London. You could be paying too much for your insurance. If you're licensed by the PCO and working in and around the London area, you must visit cubitminicabinsurance.co.uk. With us, you could enjoy our special schemes and preferential rates for London private hire drivers. Visit cubitminicabinsurance.co.uk and see how much you could save. cubitminicabinsurance.co.uk.
Have you ever had dealings with one of these big names? Lloyds, TSB, Halifax, Barclays, NatWest, HSBC or MBNA? If the answer's yes, you may have been missold PPI. With the deadline for new claims just a few months away, it's got to be worth finding out for sure. To start your PPI claim with the claims guys, just text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now. Alternatively, you can complain direct to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman for free.
The Claims Guys.
When your business is in flow, suppliers are paid, stuff gets made, days move fast, doubts don't last, holidays planned, everything's grand. Then your invoice goes unpaid, and life's a pain in the whatnot. Jump on the phone, I walk alone, vans are filled, customers build.
Whatever your business, our finance can keep things flowing. We are iWalker. Search it how you say it. iWalker, helping business flow.
The great British weather. One day you're cozying in with the family, the next you're chilling out in the garden. But whatever you're doing, Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable, unlike the weather. So for roofers who stop the rain coming in, gardeners for when the sun comes out, and other professionals in their trade, simply visit TrustedTrader.com.
What are you doing later?
Well, we're popping to the coast for Easter, so I'm getting my Ford serviced at the dealership.
You still go to a dealer?
You don't. Only the best for my Ford. I've done my research. Great value. £159 for a motorcraft service. Plus, you can get £20 off.
Really?
Yeah, just quote Ford 20 when you book online. Coffees are on me again, then.
Book now at ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer. Recommended promotional price including parts, labour and VAT. Not available with any other offer. Terms and conditions apply.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
So, your accountant does your audit for you, looks at your accounts, calculates your tax, stuff like that. But would you benefit from long-term advice, an expert to look at your business model and help your business grow? And most importantly, someone to look after you, the owner. At Barnes Rofe, our partners get to know their clients and want to become part of their team. Is it time to see what we can do for you? Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
Your business has come this far, but now's your time to soar into the skies of spectacular with a fast, affordable Funding Circle business loan. With decisions in as little as 24 hours and a dedicated account manager, there's no waiting around. So join the thousands of businesses who have taken out a Funding Circle loan and help your business fly. Apply today at fundingcircle.com. Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. T's and C's apply.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Brussels, only on LBC.
I'm at the European Summit here in Brussels. We're waiting to see, will President Macron possibly veto any extension, and how is Mrs May getting on inside that room? And those of you watching this on live stream can see the building right behind me. And let's go into the building and speak to LBC's political editor, Theo Usherwood, who's there with an update for us. Hi, Theo.
Nigel, you know as well as anyone that there are two tacks for Theresa May to get her withdrawal agreement through the House of Commons. The first one is to go down the route of trying to get her own members of her own party on board, members of the European Research Group and the DUP, and then a handful of Leave Labour MPs. And then the other route has been the one that the Prime Minister has been reportedly pursuing over the last week or so, which is to get Labour front bench support. Now, from what we understand, the briefing that we've had, hear from UK sources is that Mrs May's pitch to the European leaders is very much about Jeremy Corbyn and securing Labour front bench support. Now, of course, Mr Corbyn has said, insisted that there must be a permanent customs union, which would prevent the UK signing independent free trade deals with countries outside the European Union. Michel Barnier quite likes that idea. He's the Brexit chief negotiator
he loves
for the
it,
Commission. Yeah. He could sign it off in 48 hours. But because of tensions within Theresa May's own Conservative Party, she's been unable to agree with it, because when the Executive Committee of the 1922 Committee went in to see her earlier this week, Bob Blackman told LBC, he's the Joint Secretary of that committee, the government has to be able to maintain that right to sign free trade deals with countries outside of the European Union. Otherwise, any Conservative MPs in the House of Commons are no longer going to support Theresa May. Now, in terms of where that leaves the Prime Minister, the questions will be from the likes of Mr Macron and from Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor. Unless you're prepared to budge your red lines on the customs union, how are Labour going to support it? Because, of course, these talks have been going on now for 8 days. The most senior level, it was between John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, and Philip Hammond, the Chancellor. But still, Labour are insisting they're not prepared to move when it comes to a customs union. And that's the question for Theresa May.
And they want more because, Verhofstadt said this morning, if this was to be agreed to, free movement would also be part of it. She can't agree to those things. It would never get through the House, would it?
No, you're quite right to say that, and we're talking about environmental standards, consumer protections, all tied into what would be membership of the single market. Exactly. And of course, the price for access to the single market is you have to give up on trying to get rid of one of the four pillars, which would be freedom of movement of people. Of course, Theresa May knows that at the heart of the 2016 European Union referendum, in or out, the issue was immigration for millions and millions of those who voted to leave the European Union.
So has she now left the building, Theo?
No, she hasn't left the building. She's still here. Her team is still here, and they're going to be trying to figure out exactly what is being talked about inside the private dinner of the 27 other EU leaders. She will not be invited to that. It's still, from what I understand, it's actually still going on, the question and answer session with those 27 other leaders. But it will be drawing to a close fairly soon, and then she will be booted out while Mr Macron and Angela Merkel and
decide
the
our
remaining EU
future.
leaders decide our future, taking back control and all that.
Oh, don't. It's too upsetting for me. Theo, don't go away too far. Thank you. Well, what is Macron going to do? What's the response to May's pitch going to be? Let's go to Oxford in Surrey. Speak to Kwame, who's a new caller. Good evening. I've lost him. I'm going to go to Market Deeping in Lincolnshire to speak to James, who's a new caller. Hi, James.
Hi, good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm waiting for the outcome, I suppose, James. Makes a big difference to all of us. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I was just telling your researcher there that I voted Remain back in the day, and I was on the fence. I must be honest. I was a bit either way. Couldn't really make my mind up, but decided in the end to stay with what I felt we had rather than what we might have. And I must be honest. Over the last 2 years or so, I've actually been really disappointed with the EU and their attitude towards things. And so, as we approach this D-Day of next week, or if we get an extension, I'm looking at the no deal. And I'm thinking, everyone talks about leaving on World Trade Organization terms. Does the no deal specifically refer to the trade arrangements? Or is it other arrangements? I'm thinking
this is
security.
This is the misconception, James. This is the misconception, right? No, when people talk about no deal, they mean no formal trade deal, okay? And we fall back onto World Trade Organization rules on that, which is the basis, by the way, for which most business is done across countries around the world. When it comes to everything else, James, the deals have been done already. The deals for how aeroplanes are going to fly between countries have been done already. The deals for how money is going to flow between capital markets have been done already. No deal is actually, a bit of a misconception.
The term no deal doesn't necessarily refer to all arrangements between the UK and the EU.
No deal.
Literally just trade.
no deal is about trade. It is not about us pulling up the drawbridge and calling it noddy land. It really isn't. It's actually refers to no specific trade deal. And in many ways, no deal sounds incredibly negative. And so it's surprising that so many people in the country now want no deal, because they want resolution, don't they? They've had enough of this going on forever.
I think that's okay. I genuinely do. I mean, I used to live in London. I've moved away from London in these 2 years, and I've seen both sides of society to an extent, in the sense that I've seen where I used to live in London, very, very heavy support for the EU and Remain, and a bit more rural where I now live. It's much more the other way, and I think the stories we heard at the start are just not necessarily true in both ways. I think the EU really do have a lot of the, I don't want to use the word blame, but they've got a lot of the responsibility for this situation resting on their shoulders. And
they've been a bit arrogant, James, haven't they?
I genuinely think they have. My view has changed over the last 2 years.
Okay,
and I think it's little things like excluding Theresa May from the dinner. It just sounds so childish. So and taking the mickey out of her. James, I'm going to move on. I'm going to go to Yorkshire and speak to Leslie, another new caller. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Nigel.
So what do you think's going to happen tonight?
Well, I was a Remainer.
Uh-huh.
Right? And now I'm a Leaver.
Are you? Why?
Because I think I've watched this fiasco for 2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
I've seen everything that's gone off in the EU and on the news, and the mainstream news has been absolutely appalling, really. And now I just think enough is enough. I can't tell you what I feel about our Prime Minister.
Not an eye on air.
Absolutely disgusts me. I don't know where I am there. When she came into power, I thought, yes, we've got a chance now. I listened to everything that she had to say. Nothing has happened, and it's just deteriorated over and over and over again. And I just think it's just been an absolute joke.
It's a national humiliation, Leslie. Leslie, thank you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Theresa May is now presenting her case for another Brexit delay to the remaining 27 EU leaders in Brussels at an emergency summit. A 41-year-old man's been jailed for 4 years for planning to bomb Britain's biggest mosque in Morton in South London. Leaders of Israel's Blue and White Party have now conceded defeat in the country's elections, but promised to be a staunch opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition rule. LBC weather, dry and cold for most overnight with a widespread frost, some rain across northern Scotland, a low of 1 degree.
LBC Travel, I'm J-Louise Knight. I'm afraid the problems continue for the M25 in Essex. At junction 28, a lorry's overturned on the Brook Street roundabout. Now, all slip roads from the motorway and the A12 towards the roundabout are now closed. That's whilst the lorry is being recovered. There are clockwise queues from Waltham Abbey at 26. Long delays for the northbound A1M from the M25 up to junction 8 at Stevenage, where an accident means only one lane's open. There are delays out of town on the A2 of around an hour towards Bean following an accident earlier. All surrounding routes, including the A20 and through Eltham, are gridlocked. Things have improved in Kingston, though. Kingston Hall Road's reopened after an accident, and on the trains, London Overground are back to normal to and from Liverpool Street.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
As Theresa May meets her Waterloo in Brussels, I'll be asking for your questions to our cross-question panel at 8. And Jackie Smith and I will be reunited.
Ian Dale on LBC.
A golden wedding anniversary, or a landmark birthday party. Who says getting older can't be fun? And with HiveLink, you can help your loved one to keep their independence as they get older too. It's the new smart service that lets you check that they're getting on with their day as usual from your phone, and lets you know if something seems out of the ordinary. HiveLink. Connect with care. For more information and to be in with the chance to win an iPhone XS and a HiveLink subscription, go to lbc.co.uk.
For low tyre prices you can't compare with National Tyres and Auto Care. Exhausts, brakes and batteries too. And we've got a branch close to you. And now you can spread the cost over 3 equal payments with our payment assist plan with no interest and no fees on selected purchases. Call for a quote on 0800 687 687 or find your nearest branch at national.co.uk. National Tyres and Auto Care, helping you spread the cost of motoring. Minimum spend, terms and conditions apply.
So much confusion. Half-price carbonara with car insurance? Do I want another meal or just a good deal? Confused.com give you £20 free Texaco fuel with your car insurance. A free gift that makes sense? It's that easy. £20 free Texaco fuel with your car insurance. Don't be confused. Be Confused.com. Full T's and C's online. Scottish postcode exceptions and conditions apply. Offer ends 31st of May.
I do love a little chat with the neighbours, but how about some privacy?
For unique garden fencing and screening, get to B&Q. Our Neva range is easy to install and allows you to create beautiful zoned-off areas. Explore our wood, composite and aluminium options at DIY.com. You can do it when you B&Q it.
Don't you just love an Easter egg hunt? Trouble is, I always forget where I've hidden them. Not to worry, I've tracked down a few more at Co-op. This Easter you can get 3 large eggs for £10, and that includes Cadbury Whisper, Maltesers Teasers and Galaxy Golden. Maybe I won't hide these, we'll just share them instead. Selected eggs only while stocks last. See participating stores for details.
Set for Life is the new game from the National Lottery where you can win 10 grand every month for 30 years. So now you can jump into June, make October a scream, and stick a rocket up November. Make every month amazing. Play new Set for Life Mondays and Thursdays. Amazing starts here. Prize may be capped. Rules, procedures and game-specific rules apply. Players must be 16 or over.
To find the truth, you wouldn't listen to just one voice. You wouldn't believe just one story, or trust just one opinion. And neither would we. The Week magazine reviews all the issues of our day and where everyone stands on them. Sign up online and try 6 issues for free. Search The Week magazine today. After all, you shouldn't make up your mind on just one issue. Cancel anytime during the free period or continue with 13 issues for just £40.49.
I know what the Rachel hairstyle is. I know how to write hello on a calculator. I know the name of the world's first clone sheep. And I know which part of the room you should never put baby in. But I don't know my state pension.
Check your state pension and see how you can build on it with a workplace or other pension. Get to know your pension at yourpension.gov.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Brussels, only on LBC.
Very shortly, Mrs May will leave the building behind me, head back to the British ambassador's residence while the other 27 discuss and debate what to do about the Brits. And John from Wales says, can you explain why May's forced out of the EU summit dinner as we're a full-paying member? You're right, John. We're picking up the wine tab and the Prime Minister isn't even there. I suppose, in a sense, it's not unreasonable that they should have a conversation between themselves. But it's just the way that it's all done. It doesn't seem quite right somehow. Paul from Bedford has a strong opinion. He says, if the French say no to an extension, then it will not be a no deal, which will damage the country, but you don't care. Oh, yeah. It'll be revoke. Let's revoke and shut you up, says Paul from Bedford. Paul, if we get a veto, we'll be back to the same situation we were prior to March 29th. The Prime Minister, despite the Cooper-Letwin stuff, the Prime Minister would be able to take us out with no deal this Friday evening, though she may choose not to do that. But if you think a revocation of Article 50 would shut me up, Paul, I think you might have got things the wrong way round. Let's go to Brighton and speak to Mina, a new caller. Good evening, Mina. How are you?
Good, Nigel. How are you?
I'm all right. Well, just sort of sitting here, scratching my head and thinking it's... And really, not just because I'm Nigel Farage, but being British in Brussels is quite embarrassing these days.
You love it over there.
I don't really. I quite like Strasbourg. It's a nice city. Brussels isn't even that, in my opinion, but there we are. I mean, I'm expecting them to give her a hell of a tough time tonight. They won't accept her extension of June 30th. I'm guessing it'll be a year, but she'll have to make some more promises. That's my guess.
The thing is, if they make it a year or even longer than a year, firstly, they're going to have a hell of a time in the European Parliament if you and your lot turn up.
My lot.
And the second thing is they've got their own agendas to focus on. Really, someone like Macron has got the whole yellow vest movement in France going on.
Yeah.
They need to be focusing on that rather than worrying about what Britain, is Britain going to exit the EU? Is it not going to exit?
Isn't it funny, Mina? We've got a political crisis, but I would suggest not a national crisis. France has a full-blown national crisis, and they're the ones telling us what we should and shouldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I wanted to stand as a candidate for the Brexit Party, and I had a real good think about it.
Okay, so you're a convinced leaver, are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And were you back in 16?
Yeah. I was following UKIP back since 14.
Okay.
Before I was even allowed to vote, I think. So I'm only 24.
So you're crossing your fingers now, then, that Macron does veto us, yeah?
Well, yes and no. If he does veto us, brilliant. We can leave on WTO rules. If he doesn't veto us, it would kind of be nice to have a deal there with the EU, just to be able to have a trade deal there, whilst we're also looking to trade outside the EU with other countries.
My view now is very strongly that if you leave on WTO terms, from that position you can negotiate that trade deal. Mina, thank you very much indeed for your call. Jason from Wigan has got a different perspective entirely. He says, no. It'll be Spain who refuse an extension because they're fuming over Gibraltar. Well, you never know with the Spanish. That may be right. Let's go to Dunmow in Essex and speak to Martin, a new caller. Good evening, Martin.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
Welcome. Well, sitting here waiting for Mrs. May, but isn't the odd thing, Martin? I'm not waiting for the Prime Minister to do something. I'm waiting for the French and Germans to tell us our future.
Well, it's their right to do it because of the way we've acted, and it's their decision to say what we've done because we've messed them about for the last 2.5 years, isn't it?
There is some truth in that actually, we said we were leaving on March the 29th and we haven't. So we are now, I would agree with you, we are now to some extent messing them about, which is why I guess, Martin, June the 30th as the end date doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, it'll be a year at least, and that's very good because then in the end of that year we can have another referendum because after 4 years then there's sort of no legitimacy on the first referendum, so we'll have our second referendum and we'll stay in the EU.
And then we get 60... Then we get 60-40 leave.
Work in Europe, and it'll be just absolutely brilliant. I'm really looking forward to it.
So we get 60-40 leave in the second referendum. What happens then?
It'll be 60-40 Remain.
Martin, it really, really won't. It really, really won't. But what would you do, you see? I mean, what would you do if you found that you'd lost the second referendum by a bigger margin?
I'd accept it because now...
Why not accept the first one, Martin?
Because it wasn't legitimate, because you all cheated and did illegal things in the vote. We were told there was the money for the NHS, which was absolutely...
Well, there is. I mean, she's given £394 million a week to the NHS.
Yeah. But the thing is that any amount lost that they're talking about the 300. I mean, there's no way.
But you could say that about every election that's ever been. But you could say that about every election, Martin, that's ever been fought, couldn't you? Every election that's ever been fought, you could say.
But Nigel, it's just that you're so naive or disingenuous about the economics of it. You know as well as I do that if there's a 10% tariff added on cars in the no-deal Brexit, then that's the end of the car trade in the UK. Why do you pretend that's not the case?
Well, actually, an awful lot of motor cars in the UK are sold to other parts of the world. And, Martin, my argument is this. Only by being free of the customs union of a single market can the United Kingdom become a genuinely globally competitive country.
That's absolute nonsense. You know that. The EU's got
the EU
countries in the world.
The EU's the worst in the world at trade deals. Martin, little Switzerland, South Korea, Chile, and Singapore, those little countries have negotiated trade deals far bigger than anything the EU's ever been able to do. They're useless at it.
That's nonsense. Do you know, Nigel, about Japan and China? Do you reckon we could do deals with them?
Well, the Swiss did a deal with Japan 10 years ago. It's very interesting. I was talking nearly a decade ago to one of the biggest importers of motor cars from Japan, and he was bemoaning the fact that the European Union simply wouldn't get on with it, whereas Switzerland, being independent and nimble, was able to do it. Martin, I don't buy.
Last year,
Martin, why do you think a group of unelected commissioners here in Brussels can run Britain better than we can?
I think because they're a lot cleverer than you, and they're much more professional in every single way.
All right, so the UK are cretins. The UK are cretins. Let's just get the French and Germans running our future. Is that really what you think?
No, this is all nonsense.
But Martin, the European Commission has the power, doesn't it?
It has. I work for them, Nigel.
Ah, there we are. Okay, you are a true believer, and that's fine. And I listen. I respect the fact we've got different points of view, and thank you for declaring that interest, Martin. I just think the whole thing's of a radical change. It's not going to carry on, Martin, the way that it is. And maybe we can lead the way to a better Europe. Martin, thank you for your honesty and for your call. Well, we'll find out later on tonight, maybe in the early hours of tomorrow morning, what is going to happen. I'm back with you tomorrow night at 6, back in the UK. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much. Well, of course, we will be keeping